Hello there everyone, I'm Danny, and I today want to talk about water use. That's right, water use. Awesome. I want to talk about it with you, and hopefully share some maybe unique perspective that you haven't actually looked at it from before. If you get value out of this video of any kind, whether it's a new perspective, a new understanding, make sure you leave a like, because it lets me know that that is the case for you. And I really greatly appreciate it because it's incredibly helpful, because it lets the YouTube algorithm know that you did as well, which means it's inevitable that other people will too. Can you just think about the amount of drought that we're having, and it's getting worse and worse and worse with climatic change or whatever the heck's really happening. It's like, whatever you believe it to be, basically. It's getting so much worse every year, especially in the western half of the North American continent. You have a look at like California, especially Southern California, let alone the entirety of California, say anywhere from south of the Oregon border, basically, and Idaho border. So just go south of there. So specifically though, and especially Nevada, California, Arizona. The not only amount of wildfires they're having, the constant record-breaking they have pretty much every year now. But on top of that, their record low rain totals, their record low snow totals, the record low drought or record high droughts, their record high heats, and all this other stuff. They're losing water insanely fast, and they are like this year. There's a bunch of places, a bunch of lakes and reservoirs that they've used for water supply for a long time, including rivers, that set record low marks. That literally in their recorded history they had never gotten that low. And of course, they got a lot of people like, oh god. And politicians are going to be politicians. They're gonna go to whoever bought them into office. So of course, they're like, oh well, we're gonna overlook the fact that we have, especially in California, about 60,000 resorts, massive resorts, a whole slew of theme parks. Oh right, a whole bunch of casinos. How about all of our endlessly massive, oversized, useless, exclusive golf courses? All the things that require the most water out of anything that involves people directly using and living in, operating, whatever. Though it's akin to that because of the fact that you're intentionally choosing to overlook that these are the obvious big water intake places, and they don't have zero restrictions. Through even 2021, they've had zero restrictions on their water intake and their water use. Water use policy has been manipulated against the agricultural sector, so the farmers, the people who what is that? Right, produce our fucking food, and then of course the against the average person too. They're like, fuck you, all of you. But you happen to be a resort, a lodge, a casino, golf course. We'll let you have all the water you want. We're just going to pretend like you don't exist. But the average person and the people who produce our fucking food, they're the ones who need to cut down on their water supply and their water uses, clearly. I can understand the general population having at least some kind of, especially getting that bad. Like, I can understand some kind of control on that. But not ever before you do it. Or at least that. In other words, you can do it at the same time. That works too. But also never cut them as far down as you would the resorts, the lodges, the casinos, the golf courses, the theme parks, anything of the like. The festivals. Like, you got to focus on the true water abusers first. These are the places you need to focus on inevitably. You have to do it, or else you don't make any sense, and you're just smashing your head against the wall saying, it's going to work, I swear! When you know it's not. It's because of the fact that the people in power don't give a fuck. That's the truth. And that's why they're going to continue to not give a fuck and pretend like we need to give up our rights, we need to give up our freedoms, and we need to give up our necessities like water and food for the sake of allowing the people who bought them into office, who own these fucking places, to have perpetual rights, freedoms, and water resources, of course. Because screw the little man, right? Screw all of us. We don't matter. The money matters. And the truth is, that's how this country operates. And they have to, especially if they're a puppet like a politician. Of course, this is going to a different topic again. But ultimately, that's where this whole shit comes from. Nobody wants to believe this, and nobody really thinks of this because it's not taught. But all these states are not tropical. They are arid. Two completely different types of climate. Arid means desert. You're hot as fuck and you're dry as fuck. That's what arid is. All of them are arid. Except for the northern half of California is, I believe it's considered warm, dry Mediterranean. Except for the very far northwest corner, of course, is considered, I believe that's also considered temperate rainforest, like we are up here. But ultimately, the point is that, you know, they plant palm trees, tropical and subtropical palm trees, all up and down their states. People fail to realize how incredibly much water they require to even live, let alone to look the way they do and keep them the way they do as appearances. Another great way to cut down on water in places like that, that's just naturally short in general, especially in the summer, but now more than ever, is to get rid of all your palm trees. Because they are not for that environment. They require an obscene amount of water, and literally, if you have any experience in building these places with these fucking palm-lined streets and everything, you know fully that this is factually true. That you have to literally, to keep these palm trees alive and looking the way that they keep them looking, they literally have to implement, before they plant them, they have to literally put in a pipeline under where the palm trees are going to grow in order to have a perpetual flow of water watering them throughout their entire lifespans. They require that much water. They literally guzzle water like a Hummer guzzles gas. It's obscene. They require, actually kind of like the nuclear power plants, of course, require less water, but ultimately in the long run it's akin because of the fact that, once again, they both require a perpetual water source. They require to be perpetually fed water in order to exist at all, to function as they are meant to function. These trees for aesthetics, power plant to produce power. Either way, they're identical in that facet. So that's another thing that if California, Nevada, Arizona were intelligent, they would stop planting, and in fact, they'd immediately pull back and go reverse and start pulling all of them out. Literally all of them. And thus those pipes as well, because now they're useless. Stop having palm trees at all. Get rid of them all. Plant a Joshua tree. Plant a cholla. Plant whatever the fuck it is. You know, mesquite. Plant the things that are native and natural to your environments instead and in place. You do that, you're gonna find really quickly, even cactuses, you're gonna find really quickly, yes I know it's cacti, that ultimately and inevitably, your water use is gonna go way down. And in fact, there's gonna be a lot more water retention in the ground, which means that there's gonna be a lot more natural greenery because you've built back up the natural flora of that ecosystem, that environment, that climate that you live within. That's naturally how the world works when it comes down to this kind of stuff. So you could do that, as well as, once again, emphasize and focus on making sure you cut at least by 50%, if not more, in the summers especially, the water intake allowance and use allowance of the big guzzlers, resorts, casinos, parks, theme parks, parks of any kind that require a lot of people, golf courses, anything of the like. Because ultimately those are the things that are going to help slow your problem down a lot, and you're going to find even the reservoirs are probably going to have a lot more water than they've had for the last 10 years in them each summer. But you'll still find it getting perpetually worse after the first year or two, but inevitably you're going to find a lot more water in your reservoirs because of the fact that The true offenders are those kinds of places. Actually, cobalt mines, which are rampant all over and growing faster and faster and rampant. Well, some other kind of a mine like that in production facilities in Arizona and Nevada are just popping up like gangbusters there. They require perpetual water, and they require an obscene amount of water as well. So actually, that's another thing, is cut production of cobalt and things like that actually go into things like your monitors and cameras and things like that. Because ultimately, are you really an environmentalist? Do you really care more about the environment and the long-term benefits of it, and thus has a positive long-term impact on us and all other living things? Do you really care? Because if you did, that's what you would always go to the bias to. Or do you really care more about convenience and what makes you comfortable and makes things easiest? Because if you're actually really more that way, then you're going to choose to say, no, Cobalt and all the other places absolutely should continue to get full water that they need. Because I don't want to be without my technological advancements. Because you're going to have to pick one or the other. Because in this case, it is a rare case in life where it is truly a black-white. Yes or no. Which one? Because, which extreme or severe? Because you literally can only choose one. You can't be both at the same time. Another thing that's really incredibly important to remember when it comes down to water policies, especially in the summer, when it comes down to places especially like the desert southwest of the United States, another very important thing to remember is the fact that ways that you can help not eat into the water as much and take away from what little we have left at this point is, and this is true for anywhere in the world, but especially in places that are experiencing, have experienced, and do usually experience a lot of drought, that is increasing especially more so, is don't water your grass. Don't water your lawn. In fact, get rid of your lawn entirely. Get rid of all the grass. If you can get rid of all the grass, put a natural, return it basically back to its natural state, the ground, to that, and then you put natural native ground cover at least on it, or even turn it to your own garden, that ultimately is going to use less water. Especially, again, if it's the native plants you plant there. Whether it's just ground cover, and understory, maybe even a tree or two. The fact of the matter is, it's going to massively benefit to where you, in fact, you do that correctly, you won't even have to water those ground cover plants. They might not look great in the summer because it gets super dry and hot and everything, but they're native. So they know how to handle this kind of a thing. Even if it's a natural change, they're gonna quickly adapt to be used to that. Because they're native, it's gonna immediately take endlessly less water for them to live. And you don't need to water them. Because once they're really properly established there, and where it once was your grass lawn, you're gonna find that they're thriving, that they're naturally going to take care of themselves, and therefore you do not need to water them at all in the summer. But ultimately, as long as you get rid of your lawn and your grass, you're going to be golden, because you're not going to have to water a damned thing. That's one thing that's really annoying that people refuse to give up, is watering their fucking lawns. Like, who cares? It's even apartment complexes like these. They have their massive sprinkler system to go on like at least twice a night. And it's like, you don't need to keep your grass green. It's like the worst weed ever is grass itself, man. It really is. It's a pain in the ass because it never dies. You can never truly get rid of it. Every time you think you've killed it, you've gotten rid of it, there it is again. Back invading a space you didn't want it to be. So grass will naturally be almost parasitic in nature. It's going to take care of itself. It's going to be so dominant, it's going to come right back at you anyway. So ultimately, these are just some of the things that I would recommend people who are able to affect policies do and push in order to better your water usage, and thus the policies around that, especially in the summer and places that experience a lot of drought or that are naturally drier and hotter than a lot of other places in the world. Because ultimately all of these things are going to be greatly helpful, and this is the true logistics behind water usage. especially in the modern day, and especially even more so here in the United States. You got to find your balance, and you got to find what makes the most sense. These are the things that make the most sense, and also what order to focus on them with. And again, it kind of goes into the last video I made in this, I guess, sort of like an inadvertent series of videos talking about the truth about what people consider a lot of times sustainable, environmentally friendly, and renewable, or in this case, just in general, having to do with environment and sustainability. Ultimately, the policies, especially in these desert Southwest states of the US, specifically, again, the tri-states, California, Nevada, Arizona, these are the things that should be focused on. So if you can affect policy there especially, make sure you take these to heart and you understand that this is really how things should be versus how, of course, they are. Because clearly things right now, they claim, the politicians and the policymakers and the people affected and even the citizens all think, oh, okay, we're dealing with this in a way that's clearly progressing towards a properly environmentally friendly and impactful way. Like, oh, we got to worry about our own water intake. Yeah, sure, but less so than all the other things that actually take up the true amount of water that I mentioned in this video, and even in the last video, nuclear power plants. There is a lot of manufacturing that requires an obscene amount of water. Here's a fun one for water, though. Plastic production. Textiles. So anything, clothes or towel or rag or anything that basically takes any kind of textiles, so cloth or wool or whatever, requires an obscene amount of water as well. And then of course you have this fucking companies like Nesquik and a bunch of others out there. So I guess Nestle, I should say, sorry. Nestle and whoever their mega conglomerate that actually owns Nestle. And then there's a bunch of other mega conglomerates that own a bunch of other brands like Aquafina and all the other typical water companies, bottled water companies, are out here, getting their fresh water from taps. But then there's Nestle, who goes in there to get their water, and they go into these communities to literally take from the springs and the rivers and everything else. We have one up in north central Oregon that was aggressively fought against. If I recall correctly, it got built anyway. Because, money, of course. It doesn't matter how many voters and how many people protest it and go against it. If there's money to be made, we can all go fuck ourselves. That's another blatant case of that. So it did get built. They're taking hordes of the water. And of course, this caused instant massive damage to the surrounding environment and that entire watershed, that entire portion of the watershed. It's just like pretty much decimated it, and almost all the water flow is gone because they're taking it for themselves to sell it to us, to the world, and it's so fucking stupid. And they still put chemicals in there. They still treat it. Yeah, and they're all over the place doing that shit. And there's other companies that are doing the same thing now. They're monopolizing water in that regard, and they're basically saying, we don't care about the environment, we don't care about long-term impacts, we care about our bottom line and money, so fuck you. I mean, again, countless different industries require continual, perpetual, obscene amounts of water, but most people still refuse to think about that and realize that and look at all these different industries do that, how many there are in their area, let alone how many there are in the state, how many there are in general in the country or wherever else, and how much of water they're taking for themselves perpetually and on average, let alone per year but per month as well, intake. And then realizing maybe we should target them along with the golf courses, everything again I mentioned here in the beginning. Like, I mean, really, there's an obscene amount of things you can do to be able to cut endlessly down on our water intake, and one of these things is targeting the big profiteering assholes that are owned by the even bigger elites and their groups and their families and everything. Whether it's the factories and the industries, or it's fucking manufacturing, or it's, again, leisure and travel. So, hotels, lodges, resorts, casinos, golf courses, fucking, theme parks and all the other related things. take perpetual, endless amounts of water. And again, the policies always back them up. So we're the ones, and our food producers, the ones who feed us, are the ones who get screwed over by the policies. Especially in places like California, like Nevada, like Arizona. Because of the fact that, again, it's all about the money, not about anything else. Your wonderful little, oh, we care so much about the environment politicians suddenly never care about the environment, just like you or me. They don't care about us either. Suddenly, once they're in the position, they keep promising they are, but they're not, because none of the policies actually or truly do anything but actually hurt the environment and us in the long run, because in order to avoid getting blackballed and taken out of power, they gotta keep making sure they back up the people who paid for them to be in their positions in the first place. Which is why even your glorious, supposedly so progressive and environmentally sound Gavin Newsom is consistently, along with all the other California politicians, are consistently going actually against the environment and the common people by putting the policies in the summer on the water supply and intake exclusively on the average citizens of the state of California, as well as the people who, again, make our fucking, grow and produce our fucking food that feeds us. But the rest of them they can have free reign, man, ultimately, and it keeps getting worse every year, and they're like, you know, I think we need to impose even stricter things on the average person and their farms, don't you think? Yeah, let's do that. And then they do. Welcome to the United States. Welcome to the world, for that matter. It's all about money, not about anything or anyone else. They always demand it is, but it never is. It's just to get you to keep putting your symbolic vote for them out there, for them, you know. But they don't care, because they know it's not how it works. But I'm digressing at this point. So, if you got any value out of this video, please make sure, once again, like I said at the beginning, to leave a like on it, because it lets me know you got value out of it and or you enjoyed. And it lets the YouTube algorithm understand and know this as well, which means that it's inevitable that other people are going to enjoy it. So of course, when the algorithm sees that you liked it, then it means, of course, that it's going to recommend it to other people, inevitably. And the more people who do that, the more, of course, it's going to recommend it to. And of course, hell, I even recommend you dislike the video if you hated it. Or if you didn't like anything that I said, or didn't agree with it. That's cool too. That's why it's there. So go ahead and do that as well if you want. Leave a comment down below what you would actually, what you would do in these situations for policy if you were in a position to be able to affect the policy and change it. And then on top of that, what you thought about, well, I guess my thoughts and my recommendations here in this video down below in the comments as well. And until next time, thank you so much for watching and spending time with me to listen and hear me out. And I'll see you all in the next video. Until then, stay safe. Use your brain. Think things through beyond just the surface value, please. Thank you. Go into the nitty-gritty details, because this is when you find this kind of shit out. And without further ado, thank you, and I'll see you later.